Speaking of which, has everyone here met each other, at least virtually, online, Facebook?
I've not met Tim.
No, actually, I haven't either.
This is Tim.
I've stalked his comments on Facebook, but that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim.
I believe Tessah was actually supposed to take a class with me at the at kind of the leadership, I think, of John Johnston recommending.
Yes.
And your husband or you had COVID, right?
We both got super COVID, like right before the class.
Yeah.
So. I got to take a class with AJ over this last weekend. He was supposed to be in that class that I was supposed to be at.
Yeah. Yeah. That was in Prescott. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you were at the active self-protection, the deal there in Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're in Alamogordo, aren't you? Albuquerque.
Yeah. So I'm in Albuquerque. Yeah. Well, yeah, Albuquerque, I'm outside of it. I'm about 35 minutes, 40 minutes east of Albuquerque up in the East Mountains. So
okay. Well, I'm down in El Paso. So if you ever have a class in Albuquerque.
I got a class in Albuquerque coming up next weekend.
Do you?
Wow.
I certainly do.
Well, that was fast.
I'll put that down in my notebook.
That's how it's done.
Yeah.
I just signed up I had another guy sign up today from El Paso, a gentleman by the name of Ben Chang.
His name's Mitch.
Yeah.
That name doesn't ring a bell, but.
Yeah, I think he does. Well, I met him originally in Casa Grande, Arizona last year at Tom Gibbons's Rangemaster course. And then he's been pretty much like in contact with me weekly since then, and has been trying to get into a class. And of course, we never can seem to get schedules to align. And then finally, he messaged me this morning. It was like, hey, I'm signed up for your class at Del Norte Range in Rio Rancho. We're here in Albuquerque. I was like, sweet, I'll see you next week. So
awesome. Cool. Well,
I think I've got 1 or 2 slots left available for that one. So yeah, if you got the free time, I'd love to have you.
Great. That's awesome.
Cool.
Do you want to start the podcast?
That's not too bad. That's kind of cool.
I know, I'm a little jealous.
Well, I was supposed to go to Tim's class, and I think COVID happened and everything got screwed up, and I'm waiting for him to come back.
And the unfortunate part about that too is the guy that was hosting me there. I don't know if he was having some issues with the range or something like that. And then just basically when COVID happened, and then it was like constantly, he could not get anybody. He couldn't get in touch with anybody. I think it's a state run or a county run facility.
It is a state facility and that's the same one that I use for the summit.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a big pain in the ass there throughout all of last year, trying to get me back out because the state wanted mask mandates, and then they only wanted 6 people per class. So it was going to be outdoors. I mean, there was a ton of restrictions. I was like, Jesus, Utah, get your shit together.
And then we did the summit and didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, here's my camera somewhat straight. I don't want to annoy anyone that has a problem with OCD.
with the one revolver hanging upside down. Matt's got all the fancy guns on the pegboard behind him.
Not all of them.
I've got like office printer. And
I have an air conditioner.
You mean what normal people have?
Yeah.
Okay, so announcements are out. I guess we can just start with asking a bunch of random questions. Yeah. So Tim, these questions we talked about last night on our first episode, kind of discussed the logic behind them. Hopefully these make sense.
Okay.
First question is, if I were a Twinkie, what would you fill me with? That is not the first question.
I was like, wait a minute, let me think about that.
And I need to go get some questions from the dating game now and put them in there.
Just sprinkle them in.
Yeah. And then the last question is, what is it? The Actors Guild, whatever.
Actors Guild?
Yeah. With Lipton. He has his blue cards. And the last question is something like, you're at the pearly gates. What do you want God to say to you or something like that? That'll be the last question.
Wow.
Okay, that one clearly went over too many heads, so I'm not going to use that. Okay, so the first question we have is, what do you look for in an instructor?
Ooh, is this open for the entire panel or is this open?
Oh, this is just you.
Oh, this is just me.
Yeah, you are being interviewed.
You're on the hot spot.
Oh man. Okay. What do I look for in an instructor? I mean, I guess considering this is what I do for a living, I mean, I need to answer these questions like for what I believe people look for in me. I think there's somebody that is somewhat articulate. I don't necessarily think they have to have the wordsmith of, say, a Brian Hill or a Craig Douglas, but there does need to be somebody. I mean, I think it needs to be somebody that can articulate and convey information to a multitude of people and a multitude of understanding, meaning that you can't expect everybody in your class to understand and know what every military acronym is under the sun. So I despise instructors that utilize acronyms for everything that they mention. I hate that. And it's not just military guys, law enforcement guys are also extremely guilty of doing that as well. Articulate everything, be able to explain everything in great detail, but at the same time, keeping it as simple as possible for the layman, so that anybody and everybody can understand what it is that you're trying to convey to your student. I think that is numero uno. Like that is the absolute number one, the number one priority list of an instructor of what I look for is can they communicate well and effectively, and are they? I know we get into this a lot with primary and secondaries. Are they a subject matter expert? I don't necessarily need them to be an absolute subject matter expert, but they definitely need to have the knowledge within the field of study in which they are teaching. So, like for instance, me, like I am primarily and always have been and always will be primarily a handgun instructor and a performance handgun instructor. I do not teach tactics. I do not teach carbine. I do not teach shotgun. I do not teach like particular self-defense skills or room clearing or low light, right? I think you have to know your lane and stay directly in your lane. I do think, however, it is important to understand the context of the information that you are giving people and understand that context could be conveyed in a way that maybe is outside your lane, right? Meaning like, okay, shooting around barricades. And so for me, coming from a competitive shooter's background, I don't have, I don't have tactical experience, whether it be military or law enforcement or anything like that. But I can tell you that, balance in the body and building structure behind the gun when shooting around barricades or shooting from odd positions is equally as important, both in competition as it is in a defensive or tactical situation as well. So kind of knowing how things relate to each other, I think is important as well. So
that's awesome.
Those are the things that I look for in an instructor is, are they knowledgeable in the area, or are they, I guess for lack of a better term, are they baffling you with bullshit? And I don't want an instructor at all that tries to baffle me with anything.
Oh, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think as an instructor, you should be first and foremost giving your students an education, not an experience.
Amen.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said just about how you speak to your students in general. What kind of language are you using? Are you presenting it in a way that everybody is capable of understanding? I think there's kind of a trend with some instructors. They just love using acronyms for everything. They just love abbreviating things. And I mean, some people are just going to have no idea what they're saying half the time.
Well, and that's the problem, right? I mean, and unfortunately, and Matt, I think I think you've probably seen this. There's quite a few of the modcasts that I used to do, and then a few that I'd kind of bow out on because a lot of those guys are, retired guys or former guys that they speak in a language I absolutely do not understand. And when I don't understand it, guess what I do? I check the hell out. Like, man, that sounded really interesting until you started using, letters and numbers of things that I don't like. I just, me being the layman, don't have experience with. I mean, you could be talking about the most cool whiz bang Wonder Blaster 5000 I've ever heard of, and it would absolutely generate all the interest in the world. But when you start using acronyms and things like that, and you've lost me within the first 5 minutes, guess what? My ears are shut off. My eyes are closed. I don't care anymore. That language is lost on me. You may as well be speaking Swahili. Yep. So, and I don't want that,
Like talking to somebody from IT.
You
ask them what's wrong with your computer, and then you just have no idea what they say when they answer you.
So next question, what inspired you to become an instructor?
Honestly, a multitude of things inspired me to become an instructor. First, I love to share knowledge. Like I love, for those that may know me, especially from Jesus, Matt, how long have you and I known each other now? I mean, just through primary and secondary, I think we're going on 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I am one. I've been known pretty well to be the guy that wants to share as much like free information, right? Or kind of like like Jedi always talks about, like giving the milk away for free. Kind of, I've been one of those guys for years. I love to see success. I love to see progress in people. I love more than anything else when people have that light bulb moment where, they get that, aha, I got it. Like I finally get it. And that's followed me, I mean, honestly, since high school, back when I was in high school and then in college, when I graduated college and with my former career, I spent 23 years as an automotive instructor or automotive technician. And then also did a lot of part-time instruction there. And for me, like the thing I loved about that was kind of leading younger guys, kind of into the industry, but kind of giving, getting them on the right track, right? Making sure that they could make the right decisions and diagnose things. And that turned into, that turned into a deep passion of mine, even from a former hobby that I used to love, which was race car driving, and I drove race cars as sports cars for a number of years, and got pretty darn good at it. But for me, it was never about like championships that I want to win. It was always about champions that I could possibly breed, like people that I could teach the ways, of the art of driving a car fast, or now, with the art of shooting a gun faster, that, and more confidently, that I know I love it more than anything there is. So to be able to step away from a 23-year career that had been fairly lucrative, as far as being able to support a family, and then kind of step into the great unknown and be an independent, self-employed person, that's going to get into this, this field of pistol craft and shooting and teaching, was pretty risky for me. And I'm glad I did it. I mean, I absolutely love it. The things that really inspired me was, like I said, just getting to share that information with people, and then people along the way. One of my biggest inspirations, a guy by the name of Mike Seaclander. I'm sure most everybody here on this panel probably knows who Mike Seaclander is. Mike was the first guy I took like real true formal instruction from, and the way that he speaks, the way he communicates, the way that he breaks down material for every level of understanding for every student, I think was just, to me, it was just, I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, like that guy's got it, and I wanted to be able to provide that same education or that same experience in education with other people, and be able to give to other people what Mike was able to inspire in me. So that he's been a big inspiration of that. Several other people along the way too have really helped that as well. Steve Fisher, Sentinel Concepts. Steve has been like the older brother I've never had, that, I mean, he's really like inspired me to like, keep the faith and keep doing the right things and making, making good business decisions that are sensible for a new instructor. Right. And how to, not really like how to build a curriculum, but how to keep my curriculum concise and keep it important to people, and and being able to kind of like roll with the tides too. I mean, COVID was a big thing last year, and I mean, it really it really hurt a lot of us in this industry as far as teachers, with being able to fill classes and students, and ammunition has been tough to get, things like that. And I mean, he's been the guy, honestly, that's like the open book. I mean, I could call Steve at any time, day or night, and be like, okay, bro, I got a question, and no matter what, he'll be, he's got the answer, it seems like. So, and then there's a multitude of others. I could go on for an hour just naming names and feeling like that guy that's just a name dropper. But I mean, for me, there's 2 to 3 like solid guys that have just been instrumental in inspiring me, as well as like kind of carrying me on their shoulder, so to speak, of becoming, the instructor that I wish to become. So, and the instructor I currently am. So that's what.
That's awesome.
I think something that surrounded like everything you just said, you enjoy what you do. Like you genuinely love it. And I think that
1,000%.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, like, that's something to note, like something that you want to look for in an instructor is somebody who actually enjoys what they're doing. It's not, and I'm sure it might feel like a sort of clock in, clock out at times. But I think
so far it never has for me yet. And so I've been doing, this is my 3rd solid year of doing this full time, and not one time yet has it been a, well, like kind of the old Dunkin' Donuts.
The donuts.
Well, gotta make the donuts, right? It's like, it's never been that way for me. So, and if it ever becomes that way for me, I've tell people that host me or organize with me, or, sometimes our assistant instructors, AJ Zito, one of them, I mean, one of my absolute like lifelong best friends. I tell AJ, I'm like, dude, if I ever turn into that guy, punch me in the face and take away my credentials. Like it's time for me to check out and go back to doing something different. So.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how much inspiration you've drawn from other instructors. I mean, it's great to see somebody who builds connections like that and gets so much inspiration from other people that are in the field as well. I mean, it's the same thing with cars. I'm a big car guy too. And it's the same thing. I mean, that's how you get into it. And then you talk to other people about it, and they inspire you to do other things that you haven't tried before, or they inspire you to push yourself further. And it's wonderful motivation and inspiration.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next question, you covered a little bit. What do you consider to be your specialty, and how are you different from other instructors?
Oh, man. So without a doubt, my specialty, of course, has been in just pistol craft, right? Just learning. I don't consider myself just a competitive based instructor. I think a lot of people kind of take my background as a competitive shooter and like try to, I don't want to say use that against me, but they, that kind of almost becomes one of those things where they're just like, I'm not going to learn anything from that guy because I'm not interested in competition. The curriculum and the program that I've kind of built does have obviously some roots in competitive shooting. However, it is not a competitive based shooting class. It is a diagnostics and foundational class to make you a better self-diagnostician of yourself and being able to provide solutions to how to better your own performance. Right. So, I mean, that's to me, that's the crucial thing. So we get into things like movement, we get into things like shooting on the move. I mean, everything that you would typically, learn in, maybe a lot of other classes, but with a lot more emphasis on kind of like experiential training, right? Like learning how or experiencing things for yourself and learning how to provide solutions to yourself based on like a multitude of things that we talk about in class. So I'm not hey, this is what's brought me all the success in the world as a shooter, right? Or as a competitor. So do it my way. That's the only way. This is about us finding together, me and each individual student in the class, finding what works best for them, right? Whether that be from a defensive aspect, whether that be from a competitive aspect, or whether they're just, they want to be able to go on the range and do, all sorts of wicked cool, go fast, Instagram worthy type of stuff. Like, I'm a performance instructor and performance coach first and foremost. And I think the thing that really makes me, I want to say probably more different than any other instructor, is that my classes, I don't fill classes with a multitude of students that are either all of kind of the same level. So I don't build classes or generate classes based on, you must be a recent graduate of this, or, oh, you must be let's say a USPSA B class shooter or above. I hate that. I despise limitations on students before they can even come into class, and vetting students that way more than anything in the world, because the people that need the instruction, the people that need the coaching the most, are the people that would otherwise say, well, Tim Herron doesn't want me in his class because I'm not B class or A class, or I'm not advanced enough for this material, so forget it. I mean, those are the people that really need the guidance and the leadership more than anybody else. So building the curriculum I built, it is open to, like, I've literally had people that are standing on the same line, on day one, that are, maybe they've been a 6-month long gun owner, standing literally right next to somebody that just finished in the top 10 at USPSA national championships the year before. Right. And I feel like I've got plenty to offer both of those levels and everywhere in between, as far as those levels of shooters. Then the other thing I think that really, I feel like makes me different is, I don't fill classes with 20, 25 people. To me, I don't like that. I prefer classes that are like a maximum of 12 to 13 students, and a minimum of like 6 to 8, so that I get as much individual attention with each student as possible to individualize and I hate to use just the word individualize the experience, but to give that student something way more than what they ever thought they would have paid for, right? Which is a lot of hands-on, a lot of one-on-one, and be able to provide a lot of feedback to each individual student, not just the, kind of the pat on the back, hey, you're doing good, keep doing that, or hey, you need to keep working on that grip over there. And, and that's it. So then you've got people that feel left behind, and you've got people that feel like they're held back because of one another in the class. And that I guarantee you that will never happen in a class that I teach.
Yeah, we were talking about that just a little bit in the last episode, about the ability of an instructor to help somebody who is brand new and somebody who has been shooting for a long time. So that's one thing to me, that's the mark of a great instructor, is can you have a wide variance of ability in your class and still help everybody improve?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Something that that I love that you said that you make a point to do in your classes is to kind of teach diagnostics, so that when your students go home, they can kind of diagnose some of their own issues and work through that on their own. And just today, I was kind of revisiting everything that I experienced at the AST National Conference and just the things that I took away from those classes. And I thought, if you don't leave a class with something to work on, then you probably didn't learn anything new.
I agree with that. I do agree with that a lot. And it was great that, you were at the ASP conference, the ASP conference as well. Like AJ Zito was there. I know Brian Hill was there, and both of those guys. I know a few of the other instructors there too. Christopher Bean, whom I've worked with one-on-one with too, in doing some individualized coaching. But I've taught alongside AJ for a few years now, and AJ is really good at being able to provide like diagnostics and solutions to shooters as well. And in fact, I mean, he and I have built a curriculum together that we teach that is only a joint class. Like, I don't teach it on my own. He doesn't teach it on his own. We teach it as a joint class together, which is kind of like, I'm sure everybody has taken a class before or a multitude of classes, and you get in with that class, you're like, man, I really learned a lot. And then the very first question out of your mouth is generally, where do I go from here? How do I apply that stuff? What next? That's always the question that we get, right? Like as instructors or as students, is like, okay, well, I got all this information. Now what the heck do I do with it? So, and AJ and I have like developed a curriculum. We got a 1-day class and a 2-day class that is, one's called Practice with Purpose and the other one's called Train for Mastery. And what those classes are is it is not a skills or a technique building class like the majority of classes are out there. This is a class that is all about, okay, now that you have the skills and the techniques that you've taken away from whatever class that you've taken, like the main question is like, how do I put this into my practice? How do I build a purposeful practice regimen to build on those things that I learned in that class? So, and that's kind of what we both saw the need for that. And I don't think anybody across the country has actually built a curriculum that basically answers that question. What next? What do I do now? Like, how do I practice? Well, great. We got the answers. Here's how to practice. Here's how to build your practice regimen. Here's how to build like a workout routine so that you can maximize the value of every single class that you've taken and you know how to apply it to your own training. So I think that's really cool. And like I said, I just kind of get back on track with that. AJ is really instrumental in that as well, because he's got a lot of that same thought process as a coach or as an instructor as I do, right? Which is like, if somebody's struggling with the grip, it's like you love to give, like every instructor loves to give them just a little bit of points, like, hey, fix this, do this, move this. Okay. And then that's about it. You get the little pat on the butt and it's like, okay, keep working on that, and that might be the only time that instructor the rest of the day is like, okay, I know that guy's weakness. And that's all you get from that guy. Mm-hmm. Right. Or you get other instructors that like, they might give a couple of minutes of individualized attention to kind of the low guys or the lower ranking type of shooters in the class, but then all of their time is spent with the guys that already have like the sub 1 second draws and the wicked fast splits and all that cool stuff, and it becomes about those 3 or 4 guys in the class. And man, I've been in those classes where I've been on opposite ends of the spectrum on that, where I've been the brand new guy and the instructor spent a lot of time with the veterans. And then I've been the veteran guy in a class where the instructor spent a lot of time with me. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, what about this other dude that paid $600, $700, $800, $900 to take this class? And that sucks on both ends of the spectrum. So that was one of the things, like for me, as when I wanted to become an educator, was like that. Excuse my language. That shit ain't happening on my watch. It's just not. I despise that.
Cool. This next question kind of relates to the first one. Maybe we need to axe it. I don't know. What qualifications or skills should an instructor possess?
Ooh. That leaves it so open to interpretation. I think a lot of the qualifications or certifications for like basic instructors leave so much to be desired on what level of skill the instructor actually possesses, right? I think just having I'm a NRA basic pistol instructor, or I'm an inside the home or outside the home instructor, or I'm a USCCA instructor, or I mean, even, I'm a Tom Givens Rangemaster graduate of the Rangemaster instructor program. Man, I mean, that honestly, it's a piece of paper. And at this point, like I hate to say it's meaningless, because there's such a cross lines of communications of like what an instructor is and what one good instructor might be. Somebody that's really good at maybe like instructing law or talking about law at, say, a CCW type of course, it may just be an absolute terrible pistol shooter, right? Or handgunner. And maybe they can't convey information very well there. So it's like, well, what is there to be able to show the masses that instructor is truly like worth their salt? Like I said, I think it needs to be a good background in the material that they're teaching. So, if an instructor is like, oh, I'm a pistol instructor and I can teach you basic pistol marksmanship. Well, what does that mean? And unfortunately, like I said, the lines are so fuzzy there, right? It's such a gray area. What one person might feel like is, it's like, oh, I'm a pretty good accurate shooter, to somebody else is like, awesome. That's not what I was looking for. I'm looking for, something completely different. So again, it's the qualifications or skills. I think you should absolutely positively be able to practice what you preach, right? First and foremost. So if you're conveying to your student what is needed to shoot, let's say a 90 or above, let's say on a B8 target at 25 yards, don't tell me what I need to do to make a 90 or above. Dude, you better be able to stand up there cold and show me what a 90 or above looks like on a B8, right? Or if you're going to tell me all about having a wicked fast sub 1 second draw from appendix, like, don't tell me what I need to do that. Show me, right? And not only show me and be able to convey it openly and clearly on what it took you to get there and how you're going to be able to show me or tell me how to do the exact same thing, right? And those are just a couple of things. So I think, instructors, again, kind of from that same skill set, they need to know their lane and they need to stay within that lane. It is okay, I do believe, for an instructor to not have all the answers. Nobody on this panel, nobody across the country, nobody in this world has all the answers. And if they do, they're lying to you. But at the same time, like, know also where to get those answers. There's plenty of times where a student will catch me with something that I don't want to say catches me off guard, but it's something maybe I've not quite entertained before in my own training. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. And I think the best thing you can do is be honest with your student and say, hey, you know what? I don't know, but let's find out together. And if we can't figure it out together, I know just the right person or people to call to answer that question better. So I think it's good. I mean, it's a good instructor should be absolutely filled to the brim with resources.
Can I add a follow-up question to that?
Of course.
Do you feel like there's a way for someone to go to an instructor and gain that information before they step into the classroom?
I think a little bit. I do think some students maybe get a little kind of wound around the axle, so to speak, on, and I get this quite often too in classes, or somebody has maybe not had, they've had zero competition experience, right? And maybe they've never even done anything like in some sort of formal training, and the very first class experience is going to be with me. I get a lot of folks that'll reach out to me, like either in contact, email, or phone call or so, and they're like, okay, so if there's 4 things that you can give me that I can practice up for to be ready for your class, what would it be? And it's like, well, first of all, my class is a class, right? It is an education. It is not a competition, right? So there isn't anything that I would say that, I recommend that you need to practice before you get there, right? Because the class is not a test. The class is an education, right? And I do think, unfortunately, I think some instructors have maybe kind of lost a little bit of their direction, where the class has become all about like winning a certain challenge coin or winning a patch or achieving this or achieving that. And then it's great because it does generate a lot of repeat customers, or a lot of repeat clients. But I believe then the clients are there for the entirely the wrong purposes of what it becomes valuable in a class. They want to get through the first day and a half of instruction to just go after the competitive experience of this certain patch or this coin or this certificate or whatever. And like I said, then I feel like as a student, you've lost your way. So I don't mind helping those students out. Like the very first thing I will tell somebody is like, have you ever drawn from a holster before? And if they say, yep, great. Then can you keep the muzzle direction pointed downrange at all times? Do you have a problem, like looking at the business end of the gun, or do you understand basic rules of firearm safety? Yep. Okay, great then. Then the only thing that you need to be doing or working on prior to coming to my class are the same things that you're doing now. My class is what is needed to expose the weaknesses or the deficiencies in your skill set so that we can provide proper solutions to fix those things. If I provide all the solutions beforehand, then basically coming to my class becomes an experience and not an education. I want you to get every stinking penny's worth of your money and your value of time with me on that, on a full weekend, class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about the fact that the class is supposed to be for education purposes and not testing purposes. I mean, I remember before the very first class that I attended, I was like, all right, I gotta work on all these things before I go there. But, that's not really the point of what a class is.
Exactly right.
It's not to prove yourself.
And I think and unfortunately it's not I think sometimes we're guided by instructors wrongly. And I'm speaking from the voice of a student, because I still am 100% a student of this craft or of this art. Right. So I'm speaking from the voice of a student. I think some instructors maybe have kind of lost a little bit of that guidance to what should be driving students to take instruction from you, which is to gain an education, right? To gain knowledge, not to, like I said, not to come to just shoot a competition or shoot a contest for to win something. Winning things or earning things is cool, but that should not be the driving factor for why people want to take that particular class. In my personal opinion, I may hurt some feelings with that, but in my personal opinion, that's not what I don't think that's what a good class should be about, or what a good instructor should be about.
Cool. This is a good one. This was just added last night. I blame Evan. At what point did you find your ability was good enough to teach it?
Honestly, that was pretty easy. That's actually an easy one for me to answer. When people started asking me my opinions on things, and actually not asking me because they wanted to be the quote unquote asshole, which we all know what assholes are, right? Am I supposed to cuss or not supposed to cuss on this, or use colorful language, or does it matter?
Up to you.
Okay. So for those that are unfamiliar with the term asshole, assholes are people that ask a question not seeking an answer. They ask a question seeking validation on something that they already believe wholeheartedly in, and they don't want any disruption in their conviction on the matter, right? It's like somebody saying like, so why is, what's better, a Glock or a Springfield? And you go, well, a Glock. And they're like, well, I really think a Springfield is really, really good, right? And those are an asshole. So people that have reached out to me and actually asked valuable questions to better their improvement as a shooter, and actually were willing to listen to the information that I was willing to give them freely, kind of made me believe that maybe it's time that I kind of step into that role of being able to guide more than just one or two people. And then it kind of turned into, I'd get guys when I'd go to matches that were like, dude, we talk about like shooting something in a match, or we would talk about just a particular drill or a particular technique or skill. And, I fortunately was able to kind of articulate something in a way that really struck a chord with them. And they were like, dude, why aren't you teaching classes? And when I started getting asked that quite often, and then people like asking me to come to their range or asking me for private instruction, I think that was right there. That kind of answered my own question. It was like, am I ready to do this? Well, yeah. I mean, if people are telling me I'm ready to do this, then I was probably ready to do this a while back before that. So, that was kind of one of those like, well, let me dip a toe in the water and see how this works. And here we are, so that all kind of started in about late 2014, early 2015. And then it took me an additional 3 to 4 years to like really kind of build what I felt like was an extremely valuable curriculum, to then it kind of like, okay, we're going to build on this, but this is the basis of what I want to teach everybody. And then, like I said, I kind of opened the doors to Tim Herron Shooting LLC in it was mid 2018, late 2018. And then, like I said, 2019, 2020, and now here we are kind of finishing up 2021. So yeah, it's neat to see what it's built upon, kind of what it's snowballed into.
Do you feel like for you, you already had, like, you already knew and you already had and possessed shooting skills? Mm-hmm. And when people started coming to you with really useful questions, just like you were saying, it was essentially a question of whether or not you were ready to instruct. Like, you already knew that you were a capable shooter. The question per se was whether or not you were ready to become an instructor.
I still think I'm answering that question daily. You know, I mean, I everything from being able to eloquently speak, to being able to speak clearly, not get tongue-tied, but at the same time, not beating myself up if I can't speak eloquently or if I get tongue-tied in a class. Or sometimes I just get so damned excited when, you know, like when students are really grasping the information and they're excited, I get excited and I don't stop. And so then I tend to, for lack of a better term, I tend to just babble on, because I'm like, oh my God, okay, and from here we're going to do this, and okay, from that we're going to do this, and I just like the excitement. I think it's also, though, it's neat when everybody else kind of captures that as well. You know, like if I'm excited because they're learning, then they're excited that they're learning, and then they're more excited to learn even more. So I mean, it's a great thing. For me, learning to teach is always is a big thing, right? Like how to speak to students, adult learning concepts. And I think a lot of adult learning concepts, like I've read a few of those books and things like that, and really kind of done a lot of research on things like that. And there's a lot of instructors that follow like one certain methodology for how they want to teach adults. I think that is terrible. I think you should constantly be working on, and I think this is what, to me, I think is the mark of a really good teacher or a really good educator, is that they've got different ways of being able to break through to a multitude of different people and personalities and characters based on how they ask questions and how they respond to your responses. Right. And if you can't get them to respond, or you can't get them to like, okay, I get that, then like you as a teacher need to find another way. It shouldn't be, well, you're clearly not getting this from me, so moving on. Like I despise that. It should be like, okay, what is it about this you're not quite getting? And let's sort this out. Let's figure this out. Let's find another way. Right. And that's huge. So that to me, I think was one of the things that when people started kind of telling me, like previous students were telling me like, dude, like I've taken 5 other classes from 5 other people, and it's always kind of preached the same way. And you found a way to really make that point, you know, that particular point or that technique or that like hit home with me, was really cool. You know, I mean, at first it was like, oh shucks, you know, and then for me, it was like, I'd get home and I'd be like, okay, how the hell do I replicate that? I may have hit that guy, but I feel like maybe I didn't quite, you know, answer this young lady's, you know, questions and really leave, you know, have her leaving the class going, yep, I got that concept 100%. So how do I better myself at that? And so I you know, we always say the best instructors are the best students, but it's not necessarily being the best student of a particular craft or a particular skill. It's being the best students when it comes to being the best teachers, right? So like for me, the big thing I'm really engrossed in now is just is the art of teaching, or the art of communication with people. So I think that's what kind of carries me more than anything. Like I said, when you see somebody like get a twinkle in their eye, or the light bulb above their head pops when they're just like, oh, they're getting it, you know, and I'm breaking through to them. And especially like I enjoy it when I get students that within the first 5 to 10 minutes, you know who's going to be kind of the dismissive student, because they're like, I've been to 100 classes. You're not going to be able to teach me anything. Like it almost becomes like, okay, my life's work for the next 2 days or the next 3 days is I'm going to break you. I'm going to break you in a way where this isn't about like, I'm just going through the motions. That student is going to have some sort of a life-changing event, right? That is going to make them feel like, oh my God, it was so great to learn as a student again. And I mean, that I look at those, I don't look at those as like troubling type students. I look at those as like, those are challenges. Okay. Challenge accepted. Right. So.
Next one. What is your secret to creating your curricula?
Ooh. Curriculum development is huge. I think for me, the secret to good curriculum development is I believe everything is a building block, and one thing should build into another and then into another. And it should continuously stack together. Right. So I've gone to classes where like the instructor has a multitude of information he wants to give the student, but there's absolutely no order to everything. And the students have left literally, like I've been that guy where I've left scratching my head like, wow, that's great. And I've got like a War and Peace novel full of notes and things that I've taken. And none of this makes sense to me because it wasn't laid out in a methodical program where I got to work on one thing and then step that into something else, and then take those two things and then step them into a third, and then take those three things and step them into a fourth. So for me, for curriculum development, curriculum building, that's where it needs to be. I mean, like whatever true concept you're trying to derive or to get into your students' minds or get into their hands, that needs to then be the basis for every single other aspect of the class, so that they're constantly building reps and they're constantly building upon that concept without like, okay, now that you've learned that for an hour, okay, now forget that. Let's go work on this. And it's like, no, it should be a continuation of, hey, this is the most important thing because this is going to make the most sense in your training and give you the best, again, kind of bang for your buck. So let's take this and we're going to hold on to this and we're not going to let it go. We're just going to continually keep building on the layers. And I think that's the way a curriculum should be developed. There should be a reason why you want the student to do this first, because it builds into something a little bit more advanced later. And if they don't the fundamentals of this, this one thing first, then how do you expect them to grasp, the more advanced concept later? Like I said, everything needs to kind of to build together. So, which is exactly how my curriculum was built. So it was a lot of frustration of classes that I'd went to and a lot of money and time away from family that I'd spent in a class and be like, well, I got this one thing out of it that really rung true to me, but everything else was a complete waste. And then I'd go to the next class and be like, well, I got these two great things. Okay, well, these three things have been great and instrumental in my education, but like, damn, there's a lot to be desired. That guy could have done this, this, and this, or that lady could have done this, this, and this, and built upon that and really had something special to give their students or their clients. So, and that for me, I mean, I think some guys are a little too quick to immediately throw curriculum out there for the sake of, like, again, kind of filling seats in a class. That ain't what this is about. In my opinion, shouldn't be about filling seats. Do filling seats make money? Of course. And when you have to make a living doing this, yes. But I don't believe in filling seats at the expense of a well-planned curriculum and a well thought out, process.
I think that was one of the first things I learned after going through Pat Rogers' class the first time, going through a different class through him. I kind of took a step back and realized I saw that basically everything was building to a culmination exercise. And the final tests were completely related to everything we were taught. I thought, this is genius. I love it.
So you never let go of one concept to try to work on something completely different, right?
Yeah.
There was a reason everything, kind of congealed together. And that's exactly, like I said, that to me, that is the genius of a really good curriculum, that's been well laid out and well crafted. And it's when it's crafted in a way that makes you not know that it's crafted that way until the very end. And you're like, oh, okay, earth shattering. That was huge. Like, then it's like, as a teacher, it should be like, gotcha. Right. Like, now you've hung on to everything. And that's important.
Yeah, I love that concept. That is fantastic. I mean, I've been to classes before where that was not utilized, and I walked away just like you said, where I thought to myself, okay, so out of that entire class, I got maybe 2 things that really stuck out to me. Mm-hmm. So, and it's discouraging for sure, because you feel like you wasted time, basically.
That's the big thing, right? It's sometimes it's not even about the money. It's like, wow, that class cost me $600, and you're just like, I've spent $600 on more frivolous things before, but it's like, damn, man, I traveled to come to this class. I spent 2 days away from friends and family and other things that maybe I wanted to do to spend my time with this guy because, I'd heard really good things, and that's great and all, but yeah, I mean, like, I want to come home from a class on Sunday night or Monday morning, just completely, like, as a student, completely wiped, with my brain just being so oversaturated with the information I was given in a way that is as exhausting as I might have been throughout the 2 days. I'm ready to go home and start implementing every damn thing that guy taught me. Right. And that's my goal as a student. That's also my goal as an educator. I want my students to be like, oh my God, I lost the drive to practice. You've totally rejuvenated that. Like, where do I go from here?
Honestly, that, like, everything you just said just got me so excited. Like, I'm just stoked on everything you just said, because I'm new to this. Like, I'm fairly new to shooting. I've only really been shooting for like a year and a half or so. And as I've been shooting, I've also just gotten into jujitsu. And so I've been doing both of those things alongside each other. And jujitsu is very much like a curriculum, and a lot of people follow it. It's kind of established. And so, and it's built a lot like what you just said. You learn the basics, and then you build upon and build upon. We learn systems, and every single class that we go to, we learn a system and we dominate that system. And then the next week we move on to a different system that builds on that. Right. Mm-hmm. And as I've been doing these things, both of these things at the same time alongside each other, I feel like I've been getting little spots over here on the firearms side of things, and I'm seeing results, but not anything like what I'm seeing over in jiu-jitsu, where I'm getting that kind of well-rounded curriculum that's building upon itself. I'm seeing way more growth over here than I am over here with something that's more spotty.
Yep, I agree. I agree completely.
So now I'm stoked to take one of your classes.
Awesome.
Okay, so this next one, how do you generate interest for your courses, or what aspects help generate interest? And to me, this is kind of helpful for someone that's hosting, because a part of being a host is you're going to want to fill that class. You have to help fill that class.
Right. So, I mean, generating interest for courses, I will have to say, I mean, just in the social media age that we live in, I would say 90% of the interest that's out there or that's generated in my classes probably come from social media in one way or the other. But it comes from a multitude of different places. So I do a lot of giving. I'm not afraid to give away good information or to be as approachable as possible to people. Whether or not they're ever going to take a class from me, I don't like to be the standoffish guy. It's like, like, well, you could fix that. And then somebody be like, oh, please, tell me. And then you go, well, you actually have to come out to South Carolina and take a class with me. Or, oh, well, I'm going to be in Washington State in 2 months. I see you're from Washington. You're going to have to take a class from me and I can teach you all there is to know. It's like, man, that's not fair. Like if you were at least active enough to approach that person with their, with somewhat of an answer to their question, then just answer their damn question. Right. And give them all of the knowledge you possibly can to help that person. I think that's honestly what has like really generated a lot of interest into my classes has been me being approachable for one, and trying to be as, I'm not really for sure what the word I'm trying to look for here. I want to be as, not marketable. I want to like approachable, but I want to be there for whenever, however a student needs to reach me. I need to be as accommodating to that person as I possibly can. Right. So I think a good website obviously helps. The website, of course, then like you generate interest with social media to then get them to like maybe come visit your website or see what you're about. For me also, because again, my background kind of stems a lot from competitive shooting. I still love to compete. And so me being able to go to matches and still be able to shoot amongst friends and folks that I've met within the shooting community, or especially even to get into like a squad at a match where maybe the entire squad is people I don't know, so that again, I can have, I can kind of rub elbows and build relationships and make friendships and things like that with those folks. Those are all, I think, super critical and crucial like aspects of how to kind of promote or generate interest for courses. And I hate to say it because it's like, as much as I talk about like how great social media is, I also hate that like we're chained to it, right? I mean, we're a prisoner of it. I've got an Instagram page, I've got a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel, I think I've got someplace in the neighborhood of like 68 to 70 videos, anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes of generated content to 20 to 25 minutes of like how to call shots. I mean, it's basically, some of the content on there is basically, 20 to 30. It's almost a slightly rendered down 15 to 20 to 30 minute, block of instruction from one of my classes. Like a lot of instructors are like, are you crazy? You don't give that stuff away for free. And I feel like people that are resourceful are going to get that information from free wherever they deem that resource to be from. I would rather them get that resource, me to be that resource than to be some, I hate to say it, like some jackleg that got it like, eighth hand that didn't ever take a class from anybody and doesn't understand the concepts, but wants to talk about how much they may or may not know based on all the information that they got from God knows what resources. So they're going to get it from someplace. They may as well get it from, like to me, a trusted source or a vetted source. So like I said, I mean, I think a lot of those things have all helped to generate interest in classes, whether you've shot a match with me, you see my match videos, you've seen me talk as a mod or give information through primary and secondary or on my own Facebook page or a different podcast or modcast and things like that I've been a part of. So I think you got to be pretty well-rounded and very approachable to everybody.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how you have information on your YouTube channel that you basically, give away for free, but that's what your end goal really is, obviously you need to make a living too, but
sure.
Your main goal really is to help people. And of course it's also going to, capture their interest and then at that point, they're going to think, okay, this was great. I want more of this. Where do I go get more of this? Where are his classes? When are they? How can I sign up for them?
Exactly right. I tell students all the time, like my end goal at doing this is to basically work myself out of a job. Right. Like my job, honestly, is like the gift that I want to give folks that they're willing to give me the gift of an income with is to basically give them the highest level of education that I possibly can so that they don't need me anymore. Like I'm teaching them diagnostic skills. I'm teaching them how to, how to analyze things on their own. I'm teaching them to be better self-learners and self-teachers themselves. So like basically at some point in time, it's kind of one of those, like my job here is done. I can leave fulfilled knowing that, kind of like I left my mark or my legacy as somebody that really and truly cared about the absolute like education of the people that I had an opportunity to work with, every day or every week. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, it shouldn't be about how can I get you into another 3 classes of mine? It should be about like, how can I get you to think critically on your own so that you can better value your time and make like, and find your own end result or your own end goals.
Cool. This next question is not the fun question. It's
Okay.
the boring question. What insurance considerations have you had to make as an instructor?
Insurance considerations. Like from an insurance policy holder?
Yes. As an instructor, have you had to do anything special?
Fortunately for me, no, because I don't do any force on force. I don't do any kind of hand to hand or anything like that. So there's like, just for generalized instruction, I mean, it's been a fairly straightforward process. I will say, I know like the insurance industry in itself is kind of a racket. So, insurance companies, will come out all the time with like, hey, you're a new instructor. We'll give you a great discount this year kind of thing. And then the next year, they start tacking on all the extra fees and things like that to things. I think as an instructor, that's something you constantly need to be looking at. Loyalty to insurance companies, like even as a homeowner or as a car owner or things like that, gone are the days of like our grandparents, right? Where they're like, we've had the same insurance, the same insurance agent for 37 years. And dude, unfortunately, this ain't the world we live in anymore. And so if you're strictly, loyal to like one certain insurance company, just because either they've given you the best rates or, they're not, or they're the only company out there that's not, jamming you up on certain things, doesn't necessarily make them the best selection for you. And shop rates, for me, I don't shop rates yearly. I shop rates about every 2 years because it generally takes a first year for you to kind of really feel out the insurance company that you're working with, like how they handle, like also insured certificates, for different ranges, how they handle, having other points of contact, like to be able to contact the insurance policy or get information from them. And all those kind of things are kind of meaningful. If you had an insurance claim that you had to make, how are they as far as the claims business? And that takes, like I said, that takes a solid year just to kind of sort out, like, are these people worth giving money to, the next year? But then, if they are, then even if they, like, hey, that was an introductory cost. Now your costs are X amount. Like, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt then for that next year, and so generally it's about a 2 year turnaround on that. So I'm actually kind of shopping around now. I'm kind of beyond my 2 years, the end of this year, to shop around for different, for a multitude of different companies to possibly look into, for my instruction for next year. But yeah, I think, insurance considerations. I mean, I think every range, like if you were looking to become an instructor, most every range needs a $1 million policy with like a $2 million rider. That's pretty standard. There's a couple of insurance companies out there that offer less. Do not purchase the lesser with insurance, especially when it is your livelihood that's at stake, to cover all of your bases and to just like pick the deadliest poison, so to speak, and over-insure yourself more so than like, oh, well, I only teach, 5 or 6 little local classes. I can get by on a $500,000 policy. Don't just don't second guess that.
Yeah, not a fun question, but
it's not a fun question, but I mean, as far as from an instructor's, like from a business aspect, those are definitely, and those are kind of the questions that I had to reach out to other instructors that I was, like, Jedi, what are you doing for this? Steve, what are you doing for that? Matt Little, oh my God, how did you do this? Like I've got questions with those kind of things all the time. So it's really good to be able to kind of bounce those questions off other people, and have some peership there.
Next question. What are the important things for instructors beyond just the curriculum?
I am the world's worst at this. So I feel like my curriculum is pretty damned on point, and again, verbal communication skills are huge. I think that is a massive importance. How to convey information well, time management. And this is where I suck. I so suck at this because I'm so excited. I'm excited for students learning. I'm excited to give that information to students. I'm terrible. God damn it. I'm so bad at like, hey, it's been an hour. We need to take a break. And if you guys need to go use the head, or if you need to do this or do that, like I'm the one that's like, I'll keep going. And students are like, oh my God. Hey, all right, step back up to the line. We got, we're going to knock this other drill out. And they're like, we've all got empty magazines and like we've been hanging on your every word for the last 20 minutes. We need to go back and get ammo. And I'm like, oh dear God, I totally forgot, so if you're good at time management, be good at time management. Tim Herron, if you're listening to this, be better at time management.
Hey, Tim, this was a weekend class and it's Wednesday.
Yeah. It's tough. For me though, too, a lot of it has to do with my curriculum development, like the curriculum itself. And I try to warn people like, hey man, it's going to be 2 extremely long days on the range, right? I don't utilize a classroom. Everything, like my classroom is the range that we're on. And when we're in it, we're in it. Like, so I like to start at 8 and we'll run from 8 with like a 30-minute lunch. And it's not uncommon to run till like 6:15, 6:30, because it's basically, it's like 24 hours, like 3 days of curriculum, but supposed to be in a 16-hour, 2-day class, ends up being like 24 hours worth of information that's given to you in about a 20-hour class. So I hate it. Well, I don't hate it. Like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I hate to say sorry, not sorry. Like, hey man, you're going to get everything that you paid for and then some, and I understand people have got families and people have got work on it, like an open enrollment class, like on Sunday night to get up and go to work on Monday morning and things like that. But I don't want to fault the students and not give them something that I could have given them in the time that we had together. So, but as far as an instructor, time management is crucial. Be able to manage the time of your students, be able to manage the times they need to reload magazines, take bathroom breaks, take lunch breaks, manage lecture time, those kind of things. Also being observant to your students, kind of know when they might be kind of mentally or emotionally checking out because you've not maybe managed your time very well. I think those are pretty critical. One of the other things I think is be prompt. If you tell class is going to start at 8 a.m., you as the instructor should not be the last dude to walk in there while you've got a class, a class full of people that are like waiting on you. And at 8:05, 8:10, here he comes, he's rolling in. Now he gets to teach. At the same time, do not leave early, right? If you tell the class, hey, class is going to run from 8 to 5, we may run a little late, then that you've set the expectation, you've set the bar, right? So adhere to that. So if you say, hey, class is going to go till 5, and then, oh, look at the time, it's 2:00 and we're done. First of all, either you suck as a time management person, or your curriculum sucks, right? Or your curriculum timeline sucks. If you're done speaking or done talking to your students, or you're done with the information at 2:00 on Saturday, but you promised them, you're charging somebody $500, $600 for a 2 days course, and it went from 8 till 2, both days, bro, what are you thinking? I mean, and it shouldn't be, okay, now the curriculum needs to be about how do I just fill time, but maybe you need to go back, back to the drawing board and rethink what it is you're teaching and how you're managing that time and managing that curriculum to people.
What you just said about also to do stuff just to fill time. Oh, that's a cop thing.
Yep.
That's sad. Because I forgot that exists.
Hey, you've all still got an extra 300 rounds. Tell you what, get back on the line. We're going to do that drill 7 more reps. That's a cop out. That's terrible. So I would rather students leave the course happy yet exhausted, and maybe their only complaint of the 2 days they spent with me saying something like, "Bro, man, awesome class. I just wish we weren't getting off the range at like 6:30 on a Sunday evening because I've got work on Monday." I would rather them complain that they got a fulfillment of too much versus, not hearing hide nor hair from that student, because no student's going to just absolutely, crush their instructor's soul with like, hey, bro, like you left at 2:00. What the F? I'll never come back to a class. You're never going to hear that from a student in class when you're doing your debrief with that student. But I guarantee you that student is going to go and tell 20 of his buddies about how terrible it was, to go spend $600 or $700 on a 2-day class. And they really only got about 12 hours worth of information. It's terrible.
Well, and like what you said as well, excessive breaks. How you're not a big breaker, but then there are the classes that it's an excessive break, and it's story time, and it's, we've been break. It's been a break for 2 hours now. Maybe we need to go shoot. Right.
Yeah, I dislike that. As well. So, promptness, time management. Those are things that are definitely critical for an instructor. The other thing too is like your travel arrangements or logistics. For a 2-day class, my 2-day class, I plan on always, my flights are always going to be the Friday before class, and as early as I can make those arrangements, those travel arrangements for that Friday morning, so that I've got time to go to the range, check out the facilities. And honestly, I love to set up the day before. So like my goal is to basically have everything set up for a class, with the exception of maybe like finalizing, like stapling up targets, because you never know, like if you're going to get to a place that's going to have rain or it's humid, right? But I want everything in place so that then when I show up, if I've got an 8:00 start time on that Saturday morning, I'm generally to the range about 6:30, because I like a little bit of me time. Like I like to get there with my cup of coffee. I like to be able to kind of just sit and kind of unwind a little bit myself, but it gives me an opportunity to staple up targets. It gives me an opportunity to get my waiver set out. It gives me an opportunity to kind of get everything set up without fearing that I've forgotten something. And then I can be a welcoming host as well. It's like every student that comes in, I can shake their hand. I can, first and foremost, learn their name, get a little bit of background from them, or just, shoot the bull, so to speak. And at the same time, like logistically, as far as travel logistics, flying out, my class ends, like I said, pretty late on Sunday afternoons, right? So 5:30, 6:00, sometimes we're there till 6:30, doing a debrief and like a range cleanup. at the end of class. I will never schedule a flight on a Sunday at the absolute end of class, because there's nothing worse than those instructors that are like, hey, well, the only flight I could get was at noon on Sunday. I know you paid for a 2-day class. And yes, Tessa, this does happen by a lot of instructors that like kind of fly in, fly out, like as like instructor, quote unquote, celebrities. So they come in, class will start at 9, it'll run till 2 or 3 on a Saturday. Then class will start at 9:30 on Sunday. And then the instructor's like looking at his watch. Oh, look at the time. I got to be, like driven out, or I got to grab my rental car and go to the airport for a 2:00 flight. It's like, you've had this class on your schedule for a year. Why are you scheduling flights on a Sunday? Like, so my flights are always scheduled. Like if my class is a Saturday and Sunday, I am at that student's, I'm at their, I'm at their whim for everything for the entire Saturday and Sunday. So if a student wants to come in and talk with me early or stay late after class or whatever, I'm at their disposal for those 2 days. So my Friday is my travel day and my Monday is my travel day. If it's a 3-day instructor development course, then I fly in like either that Thursday for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or I fly in on Friday and I don't fly out till the Tuesday for Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But I always give myself a full day for travel there and a full day for travel back home. So,
yeah.
And I think that's important for instructors to do the same thing, like all instructors.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said about cramming 24 hours of information into 20 hours of training, because it gives off the impression that you are truly excited about what you are teaching. Even if you've already taught it 50, 100, 1,000 times before, you're still excited to show it to new people. And
Absolutely.
If you run over every single time, that's better than you ending 4 hours early one time because, it's just like, okay, well, I guess that's enough. I'm tired of talking about this, or, it just shows that you are just as excited every single time you teach the same class.
I am indeed. I mean, it's, even though it is a lot of, the same curriculum, the curriculum itself is very, very evolutionary, right? So, I mean, what some of the things that we like, depending on it's always going to depend on the students, right? So, I mean, depending on the student, it might be like, hey, we might be able to breeze through something that maybe the last class I had, say a week or two ago, like we really had to like get in the weeds on that. Maybe this next class is a little more squared away on this particular thing. So now we get to spend more time on this other block of information where maybe they're not so in tune to things. So then we can really get in the weeds on that. So, I mean, the time management part of it is all about, to me, is like how to get that information absorbed by the students. Right. So, but I mean, it's like teaching a brand new curriculum every single time I step on the range with students, because it's a lot of times for them, it's their first time hearing it, and you got to be excited. You got to be able to generate excitement. And I do get a lot of repeat students too, where they're like, and they're like, man, I heard a lot of that stuff before, but I wasn't ready to hear that until this time. And oh my God, that was awesome. Are you sure you didn't, are you sure you said that the class I took 6 months ago, or the class and I'm like, dude, yeah. Like we talked about that. I don't think you were ready to hear it at that point in time. Now that you've got these other things out of the way, now you are ready to hear that piece. Right. So, I mean, that's pretty cool as well, because a curriculum can mean so many different things to so many different people.
I've experienced that many times, repeating classes.
Yeah.
And going, I don't remember that part. It's awesome. Hell, yeah, going through Darcy, I don't know how many times. Another example. No 2 times are the same. Though and some of the stuff does get updated and there are adjustments made. Mm-hmm. But yeah, good instructors do that kind of stuff.
It's like reading a book. Every time you can read the same book twice, if not 3, maybe more times, and you can learn something different from it.
Definitely.
Next one. And this, what you were saying about you go to the range and you like to check it out first, kind of reminds me of this question. What issues have you run into that you did not consider?
Gosh, everything from like finding the damn range sometimes can be the hardest part, right? I think sometimes folks that might be like, maybe the guy that might be the host or the organizer for the class is so excited on having me out that they don't want to let the instructor down with like, man, I don't necessarily have the equipment that you need for the class, right? But they sure as hell aren't going to tell you that. They'll be like, oh yeah, man, we've got everything you need. And then you show up and you realize that like, dude, you're on some farmer's like back 10 acres. There's no berms. You've got no, like, I've been to some places where it's like, well, okay, Tim, think on the fly. How are we going to do this? Right. So like a part of my class curriculum for my practical performance class is, again, it does have a little bit of basis in competition. So I set up like a small, like competition stage, like a USPSA or IDPA style stage. So like kind of walls or barricades are pretty important. I've had organizers tell me, or ranges tell me like, yep, we got everything you need. Everything. We host all kinds of instructors and blah, blah, blah. And then you get out there and like they have no walls. The only barricades they have, maybe it's just a miscommunication sometimes. They've got like two 2 foot wide, like almost like door type barricades to lean around one way or the other, or they immediately think barricades based like on VTAC barricades, right? For doing like carbine work and things like that. And I'm kind of like, oh my Lord, that's just not going to work. I've had to like, I know how to make concessions now. I'm like, hey, where's the nearest hardware store? Or do you have a Tractor Supply? And then they're like, oh my God, yeah, there's a Tractor Supply just up the road. I'm like, okay, great. And I'll drop $70 to $100 of my own money and buy, 8 to 10 T-posts and like a roll of 100 feet of like either silt fence or something like that we can makeshift like 8 foot or 10 foot walls and things like that to be able to have like the vision barriers needed. I've also bought 2x4s and had them cut right there at like a Home Depot and bought a bag of screws and had to borrow, the range's drill and make target stands because the range didn't have target stands. They might've had like a target backer, like carriage or be able to hold up target backers. But like my class, we kind of need that field of depth. So we might be shooting targets at 7 and another target immediately at 25 yards and another target at 15 yards. So being able to have target stands that we can move that are mobile and move all around. I've had to build target stands like on the fly Friday night, up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, trying to put things together. So I've been pretty good at being able to like really think on my feet and work on my feet. And as an instructor, you've got to be a problem solver because not every range is going to have all the equipment that you might be used to having or that you are expecting them to have. And like I said, a lot of, I don't think it's the ranges are like necessarily lying to you like on purpose, like to sabotage you. I think it's a lot of ranges are so excited sometimes at the thought of getting a traveling instructor to their range to teach, folks that I think sometimes maybe they make some promises they necessarily can't keep, or they feel like, oh, it's not a big deal because they have these preconceived notions that all classes are kind of the same. Everybody's going to be on a 7-yard line and that's about it. So
no 25-yard B8s.
I'm not beyond.
They've never heard of them.
Right. But you'd be amazed, and so I think being able to be extremely communicative to the range, right, or whoever the host is as well. So like a part of my curriculum building was also kind of writing about a 9-page class organizer's handbook. And it's a full 9 pages and it's everything from, like the minimal equipment needed for a class, and not really maximum, but like the preferred equipment that I would love to have in a class if your range has those provisions available. It kind of lines out also like 8 students minimum, 12 students maximum, what you can expect as a class organizer, or the expectations that I have for you as a class organizer, the expectations that you set for me as the instructor, how to stay in communication with me all the time. If you're a class host that has the provisions of being able to like take the signups from students and take their money, right? Like when to collect deposits, when to so I line it all out because I don't want there to be any breakdown in the line of communication. I don't want a student or the host to ever call me up and be like, hey man, we never covered this before. And we're 3 weeks away from the class. And I know we've had this on the schedule for 12 months now, but what do I do here? Right. There should always there shouldn't be any of those surprises. So, and I think a lot of instructors would be hard pressed to improve their experiences with their ranges or with their hosts on having something like that kind of typed up. And I think some do. I think some others they kind of do like a fly by the seat of their pants, right? They're just like, we'll deal with it when I get there, and I've got provisions to do everything, whether it be a host wants to, like I said, that maybe they want to do the student collection and funds collection for me. That's awesome and great. If you do not have provisions to do that, man, I've got ways, of being able to collect funds and fill the class and things like that as well. I can do everything from typing up flyers. I can send out flyers to you so that you can post them up on, like on your websites and Facebook pages and things like that, as well as just like in your range or other ranges around the area and put them in like clubhouses and, on bulletin boards and things as well. So I think that's super important. The teaching the class for me is almost like the least amount of work that's actually what's involved in organizing a class. And that's, it's like I said, you're here in my home office. I've got my copy and printer here behind me. I spend more time here generating emails to ranges and hosts and do follow-up emails with all my students and things like that. It's nonstop. So if you're an instructor, do not think that it's just like, it's as easy as just showing up at the range, like have gun, will travel. I show up, I teach for 2 days. I give everybody lip service for a couple of days, and then I drive out and it's all said and done. And I collect my, my big old fat paycheck and it's done. Like that ain't how this works, homie.
In that guide, do you have also specifically what flowers you want in your dressing room and to remove all the brown M&Ms?
Maybe. No. So, but no, it's to me, it was one of those, like you get the frequently asked questions, right? So I thought, like, why not have a guide that I can give? And the great thing is I can generally tell within the first week of working with an organizer or a host, whether they actually read it or whether they just sat in their email completely unread. If they're emailing me constantly with questions about, hey, I don't know how to do this, or hey, I don't know how to do that, or hey, we never talked about this. And I'm like, bro, it's in that guide, and I understand like maybe 9 pages might feel like you were reading a novel. It's not though, right? It's just a very small little guidebook to help answer all the questions and help give you a guide so that you don't have to feel inconvenienced trying to wait for me, or I don't have to feel inconvenienced waiting for the next question from you, right? Like everything is laid out there. And I'm trying to lay it out as simply as I possibly can.
Yeah, that is a fantastic idea for how to communicate with the ranges and the hosts. Just email them instructions basically, and then you don't have to. Yep. You don't have to have a long back and forth conversation about everything.
Absolutely. And along with that little guide, I also give them, of course, then like all of my like credentials, right? So if they need, like a lot of ranges, of course, require you to be an NRA certified, like in having some sort of NRA credentials. So, I've got my NRA membership card on file. I've got my NRA basic pistol instructor certification on file, my range safety officer on file, my range master certification on file, any other certificates and things like that they might need. And then of course, my entire insurance policy. So, it's an entire packet of information so that class host and that range has all of the information they possibly need. So again, nothing gets kind of slipped through the cracks, right? And I think that's important.
Heck yeah. Okay, I think I know what the answer to this next question is. We'll see. What do you see as the biggest challenge you face in most classes?
Honestly, really the biggest challenge is just being able to make sure that I'm meeting the expectations of every student in the class. Plain and simple.
See, I assumed that the answer was going to be the students.
So
that they're the biggest challenge.
No, and they're not definitely. I mean, I've had students that are challenging, right? But I would never. I don't look at it as like students to be like, oh my God, there's that guy, you know. And I'm sure every instructor that's spent any time on a line with, even in other classes, other students in classes, I'm sure have. You've been in classes where everybody toes up to the line, right? And you can look down and like everybody that's taken multiple classes before and be like, that's going to be the guy, or that's going to be the girl. That's going to be the one that's either going to try to hijack every lecture or every question or every explanation, or they're the ones that are going to try to get all of the attention of the instructor. Or the other one is like, oh, there's that guy. There's that guy there. That's going to be the one that's going to challenge every single damn thing the instructor says, right? And we all have been there. We've all seen those people. I don't look at those people, though, as challenging. Like I feel it, sometimes it can be the challenge, but the ultimate challenge is making sure that I give my time freely to every single person equally, right? So that somebody that's maybe never experienced a class with me before, doesn't leave there going like, well, you gave me a couple of minutes of your time, but you spent a whole bunch of time with, that guy on the other end. Or, well, this was great, but man, you didn't give, you didn't give this lesser experienced person hardly anything, like I want to make sure everybody walks away going, holy shit, that was epic. Like the whole entire experience in the education was amazing. That I got to spend so much time one-on-one with the instructor, and the instructor was so freely giving of his time to everybody that same way.
That was much more positive than I anticipated. But I think that's you.
It is.
Okay, this next one is, I think, Tess's favorite question of all time. Kind of why we're doing this. What is your advice to future instructors?
Gosh. Never, ever stop learning. Even if you feel like you are a 100% subject matter expert professional on whatever, topic it is that you want to teach, do not ever get it in your head that you are the be all end all authority on whatever that topic is. Ever. And question everything. Even if you hold whatever that topic or whatever thing you hold near and dear, like as like your largest conviction, question it, and then question it some more.
Now, if only people would apply that to like social media interaction.
Yeah, that just reminds me a lot of something from high school about scientific theory and hypothesis and scientific law. Even after we have believed something or studied something for hundreds of years, even something that's scientific law can still be easily disproven. And I think, it's the same thing. It's the same for a lot of concepts and things. I mean, things evolve, and, your willingness to let go of something that you did believe to be true is important, or else you really end up getting stuck in a rut. So I like how you just said, make sure that you question everything, and you'll never know everything either, because some things are going to change with time.
Agreed. One of my favorite people, Rob Latham. For those that may not know who Rob Latham is probably the greatest pistol shooter to walk planet Earth. Right? I mean, he's probably one of the winningest competitive shooters we've ever. But Robbie, of course, has been around the block, since like the late 70s, early 80s, and is an amazing instructor. And I love Rob to death, and I hate his ever living guts at the same time, because Robbie is the guy that will challenge me more than any one person I've ever met. Right. So, I mean, Robbie will sometimes see me respond to somebody like on a Facebook post, where I'll be like, nah, you don't want to do that. You want to do this. And Rob will send me a PM and I'll be like, why? And with one word will completely destroy something that I had 100% conviction in, it was just a why. And I'm like, well, why in the hell do I have to explain it to you, Rob? You're Rob. Like, why. And he's like, but do you know why? Why? Or it'll be 3 words. Are you sure? And I'll be like, I freaking hate that. I hate it because he makes me question my own convictions, right? Like things that I'm like, man, I'm really good at that. And I know it works for people because I see it all the time. And Rob will be like, okay, great. So why does it work though? What makes it work for people? And I'm like, God, why are you doing this to me? But because he's making me ask myself the why, it's made me a better educator. It's also made me not drink my own Kool-Aid or not believe my own hype, which I think is like 100% as an instructor. By God, you better never drink your own Kool-Aid, period. You just shouldn't. I don't care how hot shit you are. Don't drink your own Kool-Aid.
Even on social media, you see that a lot. You see people on Facebook in groups that are basically never questioned by anybody. And because of that, it's just, they're just drinking their own Kool-Aid. And I already have people that I talk to on a regular basis where they will screenshot something that I say on Facebook and they'll go, why did you say that? Why do you think that's true? And, it does the same thing to me where I'm like, well, what do you mean? Why do I think it's true? I mean, come on, why it's true. And then they go, yeah, but why do you think it is? And then you're kind of just like, well, now I have to think about this. And now I have to really think this through. So.
Yep, absolutely. So.
I feel like we all have a person like that in our life. I feel like when you said that, we all thought of one person who comes to us with questions. That was like a completely new concept to me when I started learning about guns. And, I don't know, fell victim to the idea that I think I know everything,
Mm-hmm.
and met that person who comes to me with, but why? Like, why do you think that? Or do you actually know the root of that? And actually comes to you with those questions in, what did you call them? Ask holes.
Ask holes, right.
They're coming to you with those questions actually, like they actually want to know, and that's how you learn. And it sharpens you. And it's a humbling experience.
Absolutely. It keeps me grounded, right? So that, again, I want to give people the best education possible. It's if they get a great experience from it, then absolutely, that's even better. But it shouldn't be like, oh my God, I went to a Tim Herron class because, Tim Herron tells all the really cool, like bro dog jokes, and, he drops the F-bomb all the time, and he's got all these wicked cool stories to tell. And, like that's not it, man. That's not what if that's what you're trying to pay me to do, keep your money. Don't come to class. Right. I only want to take your money I don't want to take your money at all. I want to earn your money by giving you an education and teaching you something that you didn't know before. And hopefully I'm teaching you a lot of things that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe you did, but now you've got absolute clarity on it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned getting down to like the whys behind your thinking.
Mhm.
And I, as a student, I like almost exclusively only retain information when the instructor explains the why behind it. Like if I don't know
Absolutely.
why I'm doing what I'm doing, I have a much harder time retaining it and replicating it.
That's the difference between adult education and child education, right? So as parents, and I say this as a parent of two, he's now 22 and my daughter is almost 17. But I mean, like as parents though, right, you learn real quick, like you can tell a kid to do something and the why is because I said so. That's why, right? And children, of course, then are like, well, okay, right? Because the children automatically know, maybe not automatically know, but they just know parentally that you have their best interest at heart, right? And then a lot of times it's
you
just
must have
like,
great children.
you're going to do it because I told you to do it. No, I'm not saying I haven't had, my children want to want to disobey because of course they have, right? We all challenge those things. But when do we really start to challenge or question the why on things? Generally when we come about 15, 16, 17 years old, right? So, and we all did it with our parents, right? When then you start asking why all the time. And because I said so, don't cut it anymore. Like we got to have a reason why. So then like as parents, we learned then kind of the, like what adult education is. Like we have to turn it from do this because to do this. And here's why. I'm trying to protect you from this, or I'm trying to teach you this life altering skill or this, right? You've got to be able to give the why, the what, the where, the because, the what fors, right? And as instructors, a lot of times, especially, and I hate to say this, instructors that have come straight from like a militarized background or a law enforcement only background, because I hate to say it, and I don't have the background to actually speak of this, but I do know this, that like in basic training, you guys, like most folks in the military are taught basically in basic training and given like a children's because I said so. I'm the drill instructor. Damn it. You're going to just do this because, right? You're not given the whys. So then the rest of your career, you're going to do this because this commanding officer or because this sergeant in the police department told you why. They're not really why, just told you because, right? It's coming down the chain of command. So then I think a lot of instructors take that because that's how they were taught. And they think everybody is able to just accept this is the reason we're doing this. And if you ask why, it's like, well, just because it is. And no, you've got to be able to provide a hell of a lot more of an answer than just because.
It's awesome. That's all there's to it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and the why is a huge part of the whole primary and secondary thing. And it's amazing how it can piss people off. And we're not trying to piss people off. Just that why is so helpful.
We're not?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not.
I'm here to piss people off. I don't.
Atta girl.
I don't want any part in this.
At least you're honest. So on this next one, if you could go back and do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Now, this is my favorite question. I just had to know. This is my favorite question.
Oh my goodness. If I could go back and do it all over again.
As far as the firearms instructor part.
From the firearms instructor.
Not having kids and.
I was gonna say your parents
I
with
know what you
skills.
mean. I totally know what you mean. Honestly, I think seeking more instruction myself, seeking more education.
Same.
And I'm doing that now, even, as much as I can, but I honestly don't believe there's ever such a thing as like knowing too much or again, having all the answers. I've always been like even in high school, like I never was afraid. I've always been a very extroverted person, as you guys can clearly tell. So I've never had a big problem like standing up in front of people and, giving doing public speaking or things like that. I always excel at that kind of stuff, like in high school and even in college. But sometimes, as you guys have also known in this hour and 46 minutes that we've been together on this, sometimes I get a little tongue tied, or I miss a word, or I can't think of a particular word in my vocabulary. I wish I read more. Honestly, just reading more books, period, so that I had a more eloquent, means of communication. So, and honestly, my two biggest heroes, and I mentioned them earlier. So those of you that may know who Brian Hill is, Brian Hill of The Complete Combatant, Brian is, holy shit. I mean, for all intents and purposes, is the wordsmith. I mean, it's like listening to frickin' William Shakespeare teach you about shooting. I mean, it's just like, I cling to his every word at the hem of his shirt, because I'm like, tell me more, Brian. It's just, he's amazing. I mean, he seriously is amazing. Super inspiring. The other person, and of course, the man I probably have the biggest man crush on in the world, Craig Douglas. Craig Douglas, to me, I mean, like, the dude has got it all. I mean, not only does he dress well and he eats well and he drinks well, but it was just like the way, like his method of communication to people is so concise. And he's got like, if there was ever a feeling like there was a person that had the most answers of anybody about everything that they talk about or teach, or just answers about the damn universe as a whole, Craig Douglas. Like, he's like, as far as peers or people that I aspire to be to, it'd be Craig Douglas with quite a bit of like Brian Hill's wordsmith in there too. I'm completely taken aback with how good of communicators those guys are. And so, like, for me, if there's something I could go back and do over again to better my to better my skills as an educator, would be like to do more of that type of thing, right? To maybe go and take a Toastmasters class, or just to read, like, honestly, just to read more. I mean, you can always tell people that have better speech patterns and better means of communication, who reads, like, who just like genuinely sits down and enjoys books, and who doesn't. So I wish I read more.
That was a really cool answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely not something that I would have expected, but that's a great answer.
Someday I'm going to learn how to read.
You keep saying that.
I'm excited. Someday. So this next one's going to be telling about you. They've all been telling, but this one even more so.
Perfect.
What's one thing that you've changed your mind about in the last 5 years?
Oh my God. Lots.
Something with red dots. No,
believe it or not. Cause so red dots have been great. I will say, because of having a lot of like kind of being on the forefront of the red dot, like pistol mounted optics. Even when like I can even remember when like Scott Jadlinski was like, he and I were having like 3 and 4 and 5 hour long phone conversations before he was teaching, about like helping him to really, like improve his craft, as far as like shooting the red dot, like both in competition and stuff too. But like me spending the time to really learn the red dot, and going back then and like coming back to iron sights with a completely different appreciation for what they were, and killing a lot of the the mantra that has been preached forever with iron sights, which is why I'm such a huge advocate. I mean, for those, you guys know me now, like do I teach red dot? I do not teach an RDS specific class. I don't think there's a need for it. I teach 60 to 70% majority of my classes are shooters shooting red dots, but it's great when I still get shooters that are shooting iron sights. And I've been a huge advocate, of course, for just bettering your iron sight shooting. This is honestly a very easy one, though. That the things that I've changed my mind in the last 5 years: front sight focus, hard front sight focus. I used to be all about hard front sight focus, and I used to be all about superfluous amounts of trigger control, right? And I found out both of those to be, for me and for the overwhelming majority of students, to be the most useless two terms there possibly can be in pistol shooting. And we'll just leave it at that.
Latham's going to call you any second now and say, why? Or are you sure?
And he would. And that, honestly,
those are great.
Why.
Those are great.
But honestly, it's because of Robbie and Mike and guys like that making me question why I held such conviction for, like, oh, well, everybody talks about hard front sight focus. You got to have a hard front sight focus because that's what everybody says. And now we've, I've like a large part of my class, especially on day one, is kind of, I call it slaying sacred cows, right? And bucking the old guard. Hard front sight focus. You got to focus on on the front sight only, or trigger control, and what trigger control entails and what it means, and everybody getting wound around the axles about trigger control. And I love being able to have about a 4 hours Mythbusters episode at every class where we go into the weeds, beyond the weeds. We go into the dirt hard on what those things mean and what they don't mean, and how important they are, or honestly, how unimportant they truly are. So yes, 5 years ago, I was drinking that Kool-Aid because, you got instructors teaching the same thing for 40, 50, 60 years, right? And it's, unfortunately, there's more efficient ways of doing things.
For me, a couple of years ago, I was doing some dry fire, and it just kind of happened. And it was with an iron-sighted pistol. And what I was doing was I was switching dominance, switching eyes on which one I was using. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, wait a minute, I don't need to focus on anything. Everything's lining up. I don't need to be able to see it hard and fast. Everything's naturally going where it needs to go. And It worked out. Worked out really well.
I remember that being such a really frustrating thing when I was first starting, was hearing that over and over again, trigger control and focusing on the front sight, because I also switch eyes, and I could not I still can't wrap my mind around trigger control. I can't do all those things at once, and trying to teach me to do that as an absolute beginner. And going to my first really good class with John Johnston, and having him kind of have me go the way that you're talking, Tim. Mm-hmm. It was mind blowing, and it was this is fun. I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. And when it's fun, guess what you're going to do? You're probably going to do it more and more and more. When it's frustrating, then that's when people get burned out, and they're like, well, I can shoot okay, and that's about as far as they really want to take the craft. So
yeah, that hard focus on the front sight, even for me, I'm left eye dominant, but only barely. So I was really struggling with that concept when I started shooting, and that's what people were telling me is, oh, you got to look at the front sight, and I just kind of felt like I'm having a hard time looking at the front sight. It just seems to work better if I look at the target and not the front sight. So, but yeah, that's something that I've also seen a big change in over the last couple of years too, is more and more people moving away from that idea.
Yep.
Another one that
Okay.
Tessah really likes. I'm just making it up now. How would you
She
recommend?
does like this one.
Yeah, I think she does. How would you recommend people vet their instructors?
Ooh. First of all, I don't know. Honestly, I think something to be said with kind of like what we talked about a while back on one of the earlier questions is that instructor, are they approachable? Meaning, like if they're willing to give you willingly some of their free time, I think that goes a long way to vetting, kind of what they have to say. I disagree with the whole, I kind of disagree with with the concept of just like, well, the overwhelming majority of people say he's good, so you should go, because I've been told to go to some instructors where guys have been like, oh man, that was a great class. And then you go take the class and then, everybody will ask us, so what'd you think of that class? And I'm like, well, they're like, oh, well, actually I kind of had that same experience. And I'm like, you bastard, then why the hell did you tell me to go to that class? Like it was like this undying, like you've got to do this before you pass away kind of bucket list thing. It's just, I've been to those classes. So I think a lot of it is you're going to have to draw your own conclusions based on, I think, trying to build maybe some sort of rapport with a particular instructor ahead of time. Like I said, I think an instructor that's worth their weight in gold should be approachable. And they should be accommodating to just about anybody and everybody. Right. I think gone are the day, like we are way beyond the days of the late 70s throughout the 80s and even the early 90s, where you had about what I can think of maybe 8 to 10, like legit hardcore, like travel the country, nationwide instructors. And they weren't giving out any information to anybody unless they were paying to take their class. Right. So the only time you ever heard, from the words of, Masad Ayub was somebody that had spent, 5 days training under mass, 5 years or 6 years prior, and that was the only way you ever heard about instructors. And in today, it's just, if you're going to be one of those super secret squirrel instructors, bro, you better have built a clientele way ahead of time, with folks that probably everybody on this panel doesn't know, in order to kind of legitimize what you're doing. But if you're teaching open enrollment classes, which most instructors are, even if they were like longtime LE only or like MIL only instructors, to kind of open up to civilians and teaching open enrollment classes, dude, you've got to be accommodating and be able to answer questions and get to know your clientele way ahead of time. I think that is to me, that's the number one kind of vet of an instructor is, are they willing to open up and answer questions, or are they daunting me for reasons I don't know? Like they don't duck the question out. Well, don't back out now, or if they're tagged into social media things, are they willing to give an answer, or are they waiting on like their harem of fans to basically come to their rescue for them? And I think a lot of it also has to do with how they, like, I look at vetting instructors the same way too. Like, how do they problem solve? How, like, and what I mean problem solve, like when they get themselves into a sticky situation, whether it be online, with the discourse of a student, maybe with somebody that disagrees with something that they said, or, a topic that they're talking about, and it maybe turns into like an argument or, something like that. Does the instructor kind of have the fortitude to to talk through it, and I know for a fact I am not the world's best at this sometimes. There's a couple of times I've had to, come to Matt with things where I'm like, dude, this person is just getting me wound up for reasons that I can't even explain. And I need some help, but on the same token, sometimes, like how does that instructor, like, how do they deal under pressure? I think that's pretty telling. Can they have fun with things? I think for me, like I get a lot of like short jokes. I get a lot of I get a lot of things, especially even from people I think that jump on the bandwagon that don't even know me, and I think they try to do it to be funny. And sometimes even for me, like sometimes this shit just ain't funny, but it's like, you got to be able to like put a smile on your face and still like remain in control of things. So I think that's a good way to be able to vet somebody too, is like, how do they deal under pressure? How do they deal with people when they don't get their way all the time, or when somebody asks them a question of why, and they don't necessarily have the answer?
I guess you could see a lot of that on social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So would that kind of be a way to go about that? Like if they have social media, kind of go through it and, give it a look. Or if they're like a small town kind of instructor and they don't necessarily have that, would you say it would be appropriate to, send them a respectful email and maybe pick out some of these questions we talked about today?
Absolutely.
And ask them for answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, if they're kind of small town, a lot of times, I mean, if the instructor is kind of doing their due diligence, right, they're kind of maybe working with, either a particular range, or they're dealing with maybe a couple of particular firearms dealers or gun shops in the area. Because they obviously they got to have a way to be able to spread their message, whether it be through business cards or flyers or something like that too. So I think vetting's a little bit there too. Is like, man, talk to a gun shop owner, or talk to the range, if they're an indoor range owner or something like that. Like, how is this guy with people? Do people seem to leave with a good experience? Do they, does the guy pretty standoffish? Does he work well with new shooters? Does he only work with, with what he would consider like experienced or expert type shooters? Does he work well with women? Does he work well with kids? I mean, all of those questions are great things to ask. But definitely, yeah. I mean, if I think a good instructor too, or the mark of a good instructor that is probably doing his due diligence to vet himself well with other people, is, again, like, how accommodating are they? So like if I send an email to some instructor, like off of his website or something, and he's not answering it for like 8, 9, 10 days, or I give him a phone call and he doesn't pick up, and I'm not expecting that instructor to pick up immediately, but if I leave him a voicemail, or his voicemail is absolutely filled and doesn't accept any voicemails, or he doesn't get back with me, like that's pretty telling, and that's kind of one of my big things, like a big push for me. Like even at the, my daughter, my kids, my girlfriend hates this, because like there's no end, to like this phone contraption, right? I mean, it's how I run my business every day. So, I mean, when people will send me Facebook messages, or they'll send me emails, or I even get YouTube comments where people will tag me and ask me a question on it. It's like, again, like I need to be as accommodating to that as I possibly can be, I think that goes a long way when people look at like a thread of questions and answers or whatever, and they see that even I stayed engaged throughout the entire conversation, even if the conversation went south.
That's huge.
Or seeing how I possibly check out of a conversation that goes south, like that. Yeah, exactly, Matt. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that should be big. That should be big time telling to somebody, like, damn, Tim loves him some conflict, or damn, Tim tried to do everything he possibly could to avoid conflict. And when conflict became the overwhelming, cry, Tim was just like, hey, look, dude, whatever, I'm out,
yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing too. And like Tess, like you said, like even checking out their social media, if half their social media posts are, almost like calling out other people, or it becomes about a bunch of like name drop, call out, you don't know what you're talking about, or I can't believe I was told I was wrong. And obviously you can tell like the guys that are seriously looking for it, because I do it too sometimes, but I do it like in a funny, haha, like, oh my God kind of thing. But you can tell the guys that are really looking for a fight, or they're looking for conflict, and that, to me, that's a turnoff. I look at that and be like, dude, come on, man. Like that didn't need to go there.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned about just being able to talk to instructors beforehand, because I feel like, especially on social media, we see a lot of people saying, how I want to take this class, but I'm not sure if I should. How do you guys think I should vet the instructor? And it's like, dude, have you called them? Have you asked them, what they're going to go over, why they're going to go over it, why they think it's important? I mean, you can ask us and it's fine, but why don't you call the person putting the class on and see how enthusiastic they sound when you mention the class? I mean, if they're like, yeah, here's the stuff we're going to go over, that's a huge red flag, versus somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'd love to tell you what we're going to be going over in the class and why I think it's important. Because, it just shows that they're putting real thought into it over, yeah, let me just get the notebook out and I'll tell you what we're going to go over here. I mean, huge difference between those two responses.
Right. 100%.
So far, thinking back over these 15 questions that have been asked so far, is there anything that you feel is pertinent that we neglected to cover?
Oh my goodness. To be honest, no. I think
Wow.
I feel like I've answered quite everything, about as in-depth and as open as I can possibly be about it. So
there are 2 more questions after this, though.
Well, cool. Bring them.
Okay. This is the only yes/no question we have. Number 17, will your instruction get someone killed on the streets?
God, I hope not. I would say resoundingly no.
Okay.
I do not believe that my instruction would get anybody killed on the streets.
It's a good answer. We were talking about if someone says yes, that might affect their business.
Definitely.
Last question.
Okay.
Where and how can people find you in person and online?
Finding me in person is fairly easy. I'm located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or just outside Albuquerque, in a little town called Stanley, New Mexico. So I'm just in the East Mountains, about 35 minutes east of Albuquerque. So that's where I call home. And you can find me in person too, just about 35 or 36. I think I've got 36 class dates, hoping for like 40 class dates on the schedule for 2022. This year, I think I had about 28 or 29 class dates for all of 2021. But you can find me online, either at Tim Herron, just on Facebook, or Tim Herron Shooting on Instagram, Tim Herron Shooting on YouTube. There's also Tim Herron Shooting, also another Facebook page, which is kind of like my business page. And then, or you can go to timherronshooting.com. I keep it easy. So timherronshooting.com though, which is my website. And it just got totally revamped. Everything's really cool. Had a great guy put in a ton of work on that and really kind of build me a pretty wicked ass website. But there's a whole contact me page on there too. So you can either contact me through like a contact form on there. You can send me emails at tim@timherronshooting.com or info@timherronshooting.com. There's also a phone number on there too. You can call, and I answer all the time as well. Send me emails. You can send me private messages through Facebook or Instagram or text messages. So like I said, I try to be as accommodating as I possibly can and to be open and ready for just about anything. So now granted, if you send me an email or send me a text message at 2:00 in the morning, chances are I'm not going to answer it until 7, 8 o'clock the next day. But I try to make it kind of my goal is to make sure that I'm responding to anybody that sends me a question or an inquiry or anything like that within 24 hours. So, and that's whether I'm traveling to teach classes or not. So,
Well, speaking of being accommodating, thank you for joining us for the last 2 hours.
oh, thank you.
This was a great discussion. Great answers. I thought it was educational. I'm sure listeners are going to enjoy it as well. Hopefully also this helps spread the word further. People are
sure
going to
hope
look you
so.
up who might not have been quite as familiar with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to push all of your guys' abilities to be accommodating in this very moment, because I actually have one more question.
Perfect.
So earlier you mentioned how you are and you enjoy studying how to be a better teacher. And it sounded like that's something you're actively pursuing. And I was just interested to know if there's anything that you're specifically consuming, whether that's books or content from certain people that you feel is bettering your ability to teach.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is come from kind of doing these kind of same interviews with other peers and instructors. Right. And that's kind of my big, honestly, kind of my big push right now, because unfortunately, I just don't have, like I said, I wish I read more. I wish I had the time, honestly, to be able to sit down and read more. But yeah, I mean, like right now I'm actively pursuing just like getting that input, or that like opening up those discussions with other instructors who've been doing this for a hell of a lot longer than me. You know, like what you find works, what you find doesn't work, what has become like complete waste of time versus, you know, what is like really, you know, almost like seem like it's just doubled or tripled your efforts. And it's good to see, you know, like what other instructors have been able to kind of give me, you know, they're like, oh man, I loved that. And oh, when you're dealing with somebody like that, like, here's a great way I found to break through with that kind of person. So a lot of it has just been like actively, like just on the range with folks, or, you know, like spending time on phone calls or podcasts and things like that, just talking with other instructors too. And not just firearms instructors, but educators as a whole. So like I said, I mean, some of my best instruction, like that really allowed me to be a better teacher as well, came from my race car driving days. So two of the most influential people, when I'm talking about instructors, not just firearms instructors, two of my most influential people to kind of go back on that question would be a gentleman by the name of Andy Hollis and his wife, Ann Hollis. Ann was the lady that was responsible for grabbing me by my freaking jacket sleeve at a driving class that I was taking as a student for like the third or fourth time. And she just walked up to me and she's like, hey, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm taking advanced, blah, 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 blah again. And, you know, and I was like, I was doing that yesterday. So today I'm just here with my co-driver and his wife. And I'm just kind of playing tire support and this and that for them. And Ann was like, good, they've got enough help already. Come with me. And just like grab me by the jacket sleeve. And the next thing you know, she's like, grab your helmet. So I grabbed my helmet and she threw me into the back seat of another student's car, and got in the passenger seat, and like off we went on the track. So we got done with a lap on the track, and Tim and Ann just turned around and looked at me. And of course she, made the introduction for me and the student. And she's like, Tim, what did you see? And I was like, but I mean, obviously Ann had saw something in me that I think was just like screaming to get out. And maybe apparently she saw, something in me that, that told her, I think this Tim guy might be, a pretty good instructor or good teacher. And I mean, from that point on, I mean, just being able to share like what I saw, like deficiencies and strengths both in that driver, and then that driver to be able to immediately do what I asked her, or what I suggested to her to do on the next lap. And then, I mean, by the end of that day, Ann had made a call to the owner of the driving school and said, hey, I picked up our next instructor. And the owner was like, what, who? And she was like, Tim Herron. And she was like, who? And she was like, trust me, you're not making a mistake with this guy. And of course I'm standing there like, pissing my pants, I'm like, oh my God, are you sure about this? I must have asked her that for the first 4 years that I taught driving, I could pick up the phone and call Ann or her husband, Andy, at any time. And it was kind of the same thing. I'm like, are you sure about this? Are you 100% positive? And it was just her being able to instill that level of confidence in me that then, I kind of felt like, okay, I've got a pretty good grasp on this. And then here we are, I went from 13 years teaching driving to now I'm, like I said, 2015 is when I kind of started dabbling and teaching shooting. And now, I've finally gotten to make teaching my life's goal. I quit a full career doing something else and make this my career. So
it's so cool how like an interaction like that can change your trajectory.
Absolutely.
So much.
But we're talking 2004, 2005. Like I was not even into firearms until 2010, right? So, you'd have told me in 2005, 2004 or 05, like, hey, Tim, somewhere along the way in 2017, 2018, 2019, you're going to be teaching for a living. I'd have been like, yeah, okay, right, whatever. Let alone if somebody said, hey, you're going to be teaching shooting, related content and high performance, pistol craft, I'd have been like, you're out of your mind. Yeah. There's no way to see like that trajectory was going to lead to where I'm at now. And I think not just my lucky stars, I thank the Hollises every single day for giving me that initial opportunity. And, here I am now. So, which is really cool.
So if you had to like sum all of that up, and I think you already said it earlier, the way that you're pursuing being a better teacher and instructor is by being a perpetual student.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Well, that was a good note to end on.
Definitely.
No, that was an awesome story. I looked her up, go, okay, let's see this person. And that's awesome.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Andy and Ann Hollis. So for those that may not obviously be familiar with that, like, that kind of life as far as race car driving, Andy was one of the sole responsible programmers for Microsoft Flight Simulator, like way back in the 80s and early 90s. And also was like a high level, like SCCA autocrosser for years. And then Ann Hollis, his wife, got into autocross. I think they're like the winningest like power couple in sports car club racing for like probably since the mid to late 80s. And I can't remember exactly how many national championships both of them combined have won, or either of them have won separately. But they were my driving coaches I would seriously pick out classes across the country to trailer my car to, just to go take classes that I knew they were teaching, because, like in my book, like Andy was one of the best freaking, guys to steer a car I'd ever seen. And Ann as well, and it wasn't like, oh, she's good for a lady. It was like Ann would put the ass whooping on anybody at any time. And just the way, again, like for her to learn from her about how to teach was amazing, because she is such an amazing teacher. So, and they've kind of since, here we are in 2021. I don't believe they're doing much autocrossing anymore. But like Andy is still like, he does like the One Lap of America, which is like a big car and driver magazine type of deal. And still does a lot of track stuff and driving instruction and things with like some really, really high level road racing drivers and things now too. So it's cool to see them. Later in life now, still doing what they love to do. And, it's still a good support system for me. So.
And that is just,
that's
it
awesome.
is awesome. It is.
Yeah. That's great.
No, maybe we need to get them on.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah. Because this isn't just shooting stuff. This is how to be a good instructor.
Yep. I think I could talk to her and find out if that was something we should be interested in being on the panel for. That'd be awesome.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
I would love that. That would be amazing.
It's going to be interesting because there are going to be so many similarities, and people are going to go, oh, but she doesn't teach gun stuff, but she's saying this. Yeah.
Right.
Teaching is teaching.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, again, yeah, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Good. Yeah, this was officially the first episode. So
man, I got to be on episode 1.
Yes,
Wow.
I think we're off to a good start.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, this was great. I really appreciate all of the answers and the information that you gave.
Thanks.
It was all really sincere and definitely helpful for me. I mean, you covered a lot of stuff that I would not have even considered, especially where I am starting out in the early consideration stages. This is a really big step up or a leg up for me personally, just being able to have resources that are people that I look up to makes a big difference.
Awesome.
Like
no,
this.
and I mean, this obviously, just like I tell everybody in classes too, right? I mean, this doesn't end here. So you guys all, have ways of being able to get in touch with me or stay in communication with me too. So, I mean, if there's anything I can ever help with, please let me know. I'd love to be able to help and kind of guide or lead however I possibly can. So
yeah, I'll keep stalking you on Facebook, reading your
Perfect.
Facebook comments.
Perfect.